Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Megha Vishwanath. As we near the end of the second phase of the nationwide lockdown, the e-commerce sector is looking to get clarity on whether they will be allowed to restore full operations, including delivering non-essential products or not. CNBC-TV18 learns that industry associations have reached out to the government to push for the cause of the sector as it battles an economic slowdown. My colleague Mugdha has been following up on the developments and actually has updates for us. Mugdha, what are you picking up? You've been in touch with all the players right now. Is there clarity right now or a confusion around whether they'll be able to restart operations or not?
Right now, there's absolute confusion. You know, like you said, we're just a few days away from May 3rd when the second phase of the lockdown is expected to end. And right now, in fact, we don't have clarity whether the lockdown will be lifted after May 3rd. And one industry that is desperately seeking clarity is the e-commerce sector, which has been heavily disrupted over the last several weeks of the lockdown. And so, yes, they have made representations to the government. In fact, industry bodies such as NASSCOM and FICCI had a virtual meeting with the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal on Tuesday. And while, of course, the larger issues around the need for a stimulus package were discussed, these associations did put forth recommendations for the e-commerce sector, asking that there be some relief in terms of the restrictions on e-commerce and that they be allowed to deliver all products, and that there be some clarity on when they will be able to restore full operations. But like I said, there seems to be no clarity whether on what happens after May 3rd. In fact, from after the meeting of the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers earlier this week, there were reports that suggested that the lockdown will be lifted first only in the green zones and only later in the other areas. So we have to wait and watch for that. But the e-commerce sector is really wary of ramping up operations to prepare for the lifting of the lockdown, without any guidelines or clarifications from the centre. Because remember, the industry has seen quite a bit of a flip-flop from the centre in just the last few weeks. Remember that the MHA had included e-commerce as part of the relaxations from April 20th. Including for non-essential goods, but just 2 days before it was to kick in, they had rescinded the clause. And the e-commerce sector is concerned that if they are given a notice just a day or two before the lockdown is to be lifted, they will not be able to ramp up operations in just a matter of days, because they have to work with lakhs of sellers across the country. They have to work with each individual state and look at the local situation in each state. So yes, the e-commerce sector looking for clarity from the government on whether they can restore operations.
That's right, Mugdha. And as you pointed out, we right here at CNBC TV18 Startup Street have been speaking to multiple players. And the one thing that they've said is that they want clear communication and clarity, as e-commerce is not a switch that you can turn on and off. Some clarity would help them prepare better for when the lockdown is lifted. Thanks a lot for sharing all those details with us. Now, the lockdown has also hit India's multi-billion-dollar logistics industry hard, as businesses have come to a standstill. Today, we turn our focus on this industry, which is working behind the scenes to ensure that we are able to access essential goods amidst this COVID-19 crisis. To shed some light on the issue, I have with me Rajesh, co-founder and CEO of BlackBuck, and Nitish, co-founder and CEO of Locus. Gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to us on CNBC TV18. Rajesh, let me start this discussion with you. It's been almost 2 months since we've been in this lockdown. How has BlackBuck fared since the lockdown? How much movement are you seeing now that, we're in this mix of essentials allowed, non-essentials not allowed? Could you tell us what's going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, thanks, Megha, for having me on. So I think, as you rightly said, I think the day of lockdown, transportation activity in India went down to less than 5% of the normal. And the first week was definitely spent out clearing the confusion in terms of what can move and what cannot. And I think after that, probably every week, the activity has picked up about 3 to 5%. As we speak today, and I'm speaking more for at large, the large trucks transportation, which basically is happening between cities. Broadly, transportation has resumed about close to 35% odd. And I think it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle of demand being available because truckers have to feed themselves. So they want to be on the road. But if they don't get loads on the road, there's no point in being on the roads. I think that's point one. Point number two is that obviously drivers are pretty much afraid, of catching COVID if they are on the road, given the kind of job it is. So I think a mix of both these has reduced the supply availability in the market, and there are lesser loads. And as we speak today, if I have to give you a sectorial overview of which sectors are operating, more intensely, as close to their normal as possible, which sectors are not at all. So you've got FMCG, like anything which is with respect to essentials, right? FMCG, which includes also edible oils, like packaged food, and some industries which serve these industries in terms of some chemicals which are required, etc. Right? I think all of these industries have broadly reached to their 50-60% kind of a recovery mark, and like that's moving really heavily. It's being in harvest season, like wheat is moving very rampantly across the country, continues to move. And, right. On the other side, the ones which have got badly hit are the infrastructure, construction related industries. I think very little recovery has happened over there. And this is obviously with the limited understanding of what is the kind of activity which is doing on our platform. I'm able to comment.
Yes. Okay, thank you for sharing those observations, and of course what you said about the driver partners being traumatized with what happened in the first week of the lockdown. That's clearly a fear that has not left many delivery partners and driver partners. And speaking of that, Nitish, for you at Locus, a large part of your client base actually comes from the essential services. So e-commerce, FMCG, retail, and even food distribution. Those are the kind of clients that you're servicing at this point. And I believe that some of them, the volumes have increased by 3 or 5 times, while companies are operating at just 40 or 60% of their usual capacity. So talk to us about how your systems are able to cope with the imbalance. How are they plugging the gap, and where did you have to tinker the model to kind of make do with what's available on ground and still fulfill orders?
Absolutely. Good evening, and thanks for having me here. At this point, when exactly as you said, that operations have scaled to 60% while the demand has surged to 300%. And especially in sectors like grocery, e-commerce is a little more balanced out because the essential demand has risen, but non-essentials like apparels, due to regulatory reasons, have been stopped. So in cases of groceries and other essential delivery services where the demand has been surged so high, it becomes absolutely imperative to optimize it. You want to make sure that each of your delivery executives have the optimal load, the right chronology of delivery. They are entering and exiting the warehouse in the minimal time. All the planning has to be done pre, and by pre, I mean in the couple of hours before that, because every day the demand is increasing as well as the demand is changing. So you cannot use your existing systems. So the need for dynamic decision making, right, has risen dramatically along with the end-to-end visibility. So all the supply chains which had dynamic decision making behind, they in this current macro environment have been able to respond to changes much more quickly. For example, companies which were doing slotted deliveries can today do slotless 24-hour deliveries because everybody is at home. Similarly, they need to also manage things like the transaction time increasing at the contactless deliveries. So can your delivery tech be integrated with the security systems? Can those transaction times be reduced? At the same time, if there are some COVID hot zones, can your routing ensure that you're removing them? Then can you push out operational alerts, enabling them to sanitize themselves, put out the process, give them mandatory sanitization breaks? So these are the key ways that the companies which were tech enabled beyond visibility have been dealing with it.
Okay. So clearly every day is a new day, and these are new demands coming in from your clients. But Rajesh, I believe you have also announced a slew of measures today. So we're catching up with you at the right time to essentially bring the logistics industry out of its current state of limbo. Talk to us about your Move India initiative. What is it all about?
Yeah. So I think, as you were describing it, right, how do we reset India? I think to reset India and bring it back in motion, trucking and logistics is like the core of it, right? If we can't get the wheels back in motion, it's very difficult to get back the country, right? So I think there, our take is that there are two big reasons why what is happening, and what would be the friction or the inertia for it to get back in motion, right? So one is very clearly the vicious cycle I was talking about, right? So today, when there is very less demand in the market and very few truck owners out there, right? What is happening is that it is very difficult for a shipper to find a truck, right? So it's become probably 5 times more difficult for a shipper to find a truck. He's also paying exorbitant prices, like probably 10 to 100% more than the regular normal, right? The same issue on the trucker side is that he's not able to find a trip, and he's probably also getting paid less because a lot of these lanes he's going empty. Right? So I think the problem of how do you enable a very seamless matching, I think, which we are for the BlackBuck ecosystem, that's the core for the BlackBuck as a company, that's the core of our business, right? We decided to make that free. We decided that let's not keep this platform only for our usage. Let us allow this platform to be used by anybody, and we waived off the entire commission we make in this particular area, right? So that's our big move, step one. We had to redesign our tech platform in a way that sort of increased. Second aspect of it is that drivers, right? Driver partners who are the ones which are the most impacted, right? How do we take care of them, right? So we have launched a slew of measures where we have covered all the driver partners, which is broadly about close to 300,000 driver partners who work with us. If at all on a trip they catch COVID, they have access to 50,000 rupees of direct cash transfer benefit. They have access to 50,000 rupees of hospitalization, 3 lakh rupees of term cover, right? So all these measures are towards how can we bring and move the country back in motion.
Okay. So for our viewers who've just missed out, let me reiterate something that you've just done is essentially extended your platform and commission waiver to small-time transporters, mandi sellers, distributors who are currently not a part of the BlackBuck platform. But Nitish, we're running out of time, but you mentioned a couple of things in terms of tech and innovation and new features that clients are asking for in terms of contactless delivery, even zone-based routing that has been integrated and has to be accounted for. But what else are clients asking for right now? Nitish, are you able to hear me?
Absolutely. So we have recently launched an initiative called QuickStart, where we have again launched a light version of our platform in a much easier to use format, absolutely free of cost for the first few months. And this is because we are seeing a lot of increased demand from the SMB sector. So previously the enterprise sector and some of the ahead of the curve leading venture companies were using tech-enabled operations and specifically decision-making along with the visibility in them. But today we are seeing the same demand come from the SMB sector. And that's why we launched this QuickStart, where now the entire power of Locus, which is behind some of the largest multinationals and deployed across dozens of countries, is available to the SMB ecosystem at India at extremely low cost, right? Additionally, what we did, because we had a lot of primary data, we reached out to a bunch of dhabas, petrol pumps, and various amenities available across highways in India, and created a quick app called Driver Seva, which was available for any truck driver stranded across the state borders during the lockdown, right? And they could now immediately get a very verified set of information as to where is the nearest shelter, food, water, and health facilities available to them. And this was made possible by making thousands of calls and actually putting out verified first-hand data, working with various partners like Highway.
Nitish, I'm running out of time, so I will have to jump in here. Point noted. Rajesh, quickly before I wrap up this discussion, I know you have been having a dialogue with the government. Has there been any progress there? Could you have 15 seconds to answer this. Tell us if you've been able to get things back on track, or what does the roadmap look like?
I think to move goods, we have 100% clarity. I think there is no dichotomy in that.
Okay.
I think it's a clear white and black list. And government is also, sort of working with us on specific focus on some sectors. And that, I think we're just going in and solving problems for them as it comes.
Okay, all right. So a clear black and white list right there. Well, Rajesh and Nitish, thank you so much for sharing all these details with us right here on Startup Street.